So, hi everyone. Okay, so we are going to talk about a new HR. It's actually a hot HR skill. It's called global mobility, and we have invited our guests. Okay, they are our so-called experts on global mobility. And anyway, here's George. Hi, George. How are you?
Hey. Good evening, Chris. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. Nice to be back here. Yeah, I'm also very happy, Chris, kasi this is one of the topics that has actually, for some reason or the other, we haven't really heard from it, but it's actually a vital part of HR. I myself have known this thing since 2012 pa yata eh. Pero, parang it hasn't really gone through the limelight. No? So, and it's good. And then here with episode 87, I'd like to welcome everyone. Good evening, everyone. And of course, our guests. We're going to talk about how to manage expat relocation here in the Philippines. No? So, and that particular skill flows into what you call global mobility or workforce mobility. Intro ko na yung guest natin, Chris, no?
Yes, George, please.
Yan. Yes, okay. So we're actually blessed this evening to have two guests who are subject matter experts. No, these guys are pretty much the people that you go to when it comes to what you call global mobility, and makakatulong to sa lahat ng HR folks dyan who are watching or who are listening, who may want to get a better understanding or a guide on how to actually do this on their own. Okay, so
But
well,
George,
yeah,
let's actually just welcome our HR friends. Okay, so most of
so,
our friends, the one who are part of our community, they're from BPO. So that's why we're talking about global mobility. It's because of the expats. Okay, so we have a lot of nationalities here. So Indians from India. Okay, so Germans, Chinese. Okay, and I guess Singaporeans and Malaysians. So there. So these are the expat community that are working in our BPO industry. So if you may introduce our guests.
okay, so I'll start with Sheila Teyu. She is a global mobility manager for Maxeon Solar, which is based in Singapore. And Sheila was actually originated from Cebu City, and has 15 years of global mobility experience. She's actually done different vendor and client roles, and then was a recipient of the Forum of Expatriate Management Rising GM Star of the Year Award in 2016. So, and I'm sure it's one of the awards given to people who are in this industry, and ERC's Meritorious Service Award in 2017. Good evening, Sheila.
Evening. Thanks for having me.
Nice,
Nice to
nice.
hear.
So, Sheila, can you tell us about your award? I'm just curious about it.
Yeah, Christine. Yeah, like like any other industry, there's usually like parang there's this organization that arranges for all global mobility professionals or HR professionals to come together, and we kind of go through a nomination and voting system on who should get certain awards. So like there's a best provider, there's a like in my case, global mobility. I was a rising star because I was starting out a bit newly by then with that organization. So it's kind of like this, and then they form these annual awards every year. And so in those years of 2016 and 2017, where I was most active with these forums and expatriate relocation organizations, associations, that's when I got the award, which was a surprise to me as well, because I didn't think I would be receiving any such award. But I know I was attending quite a lot of I was attending a lot of the events. I was participating and doing panels as well, doing sessions. So that was one of the reasons, I guess, that I was selected for it. And I was trying to help all the newcomers also for mobility, since I have like 15 years plus of mobility experience behind me. So it's I always want to kind of pay it forward and encourage anyone who's interested in mobility to come in, because it's really a niche, like you mentioned earlier, right? Like it's not for everyone. So for anyone who kind of likes it and has interest in it, I'm all there. Like that's why when George said, "Do you want to come on to this podcast?" I'm like, sure. If it helps anything, I am
Well,
happy to help.
there are a lot of millennials actually who are gunning for to work in Singapore and in Canada. So you're in Singapore right now.
Correct.
So can you just tell us, okay, so the first time you set foot on Singapore, what did you have to adjust to?
For sure, culture, yeah, and the absence of family is one thing, because at home we're always surrounded by family and friends, yeah. But this time you're there and it's a new environment. It's English, but it's still a new language, a new culture also. Like people don't talk the way we do, don't think the way we do. The food's different. So it's kind of one of the first things that hit me when I came to Singapore, and I was like, oh, so this is Singapore.
Mhm.
But what also struck me was the order of Singapore, right? Right? Like everything's so orderly, it's so organized, and everything was so easy also. So I was like, okay, I'm welcoming all that. Like you have to just be open-minded and welcome all the changes, and embrace them also to adjust faster and better into the new location. And that's what I did, like 10 plus years now in Singapore. So happy.
Yes. So what I liked about Singapore, so we vacation in Singapore, but what I do like is, yes, it is orderly. And well, they say it's a fine city because it's full of
All the
fines,
time.
but it's also like a good place to really. So if you're really, or if you're someone who is actually an urbanite, okay, you can actually like just share, go to Orchard. We were at Orchard Road, and then we just relax in Sentosa. So that's our itinerary when we go to Singapore.
It's
But
a very ideal itinerary,
yeah.
Christine.
So anyhow, okay, so hi Sheila, we'll get back to you. And then we have Jen. So George, can you introduce Jen?
Yeah, so teka lang nag-reload lang ako, but alam mo, just to dyan sa Singapore, sobrang ano ko yan, sobrang nami-miss ko yung lugar na yan
Actually,
because
pumayat kami sa Singapore kasi lakad kami ng lakad.
ako tumaba kasi masarap
Kain ng
sa
kain.
hotels, saka sa
After a while, it settles though, Christina. Ayan, look at me. Hindi na ako kumakagat. I reached the limit.
Ayan,
Yeah,
okay.
kwento ko lang kasi yung the first time I rode the cable cars, tawa ng tawa sa akin yung husband ko kasi I actually fear heights. So, yan. Parang hindi ako makatingin sa baba. Naka-straight lang ako ganyan, straight wall. Tapos hindi ako gumagalaw.
Grabe, no?
Good for you for still going on it though, di ba? You could have opted to just stay behind, but you still went on, which is
Wala
amazing,
eh.
di ba?
Well, actually, I wanted to try it because people were raving about it. Our tour guide was raving about it, and then, but it's the heights. It's not for me. You know. Okay,
Yeah.
George. Yes.
Okay. So also to introduce to everyone, we have Jen Recaña. She is the operations manager of Vanguard Workforce Mobility Solutions, which is a local provider here in the Philippines. Jen has pretty much very good mobility and workforce mobility experience behind her, being with this industry for 14 years. She's her expertise or her familiarities with in handling international household moving for returning expatriates. So returning to So ibig sabihin, sanay na talaga tong si Jen, no? And she has been managing expatriate relocation for the longest time since she started. No? And I'm sure she has
Yes.
more, extensive background that she's probably willing to share to us tonight, no? Para sa lahat ng mga nanonood. Yan. So all for the industry of global mobility. So let's hear it from Jen. Hi, Jen.
Hi, good evening, guys. Yes. Thank
Jen,
you for having us here.
paano ka napunta sa global mobility? Kasi a lot of people, they go
Yes.
into payroll, recruitment. So how?
Yeah, and there's really no course for a relocation or for a global mobility, even for household moving. There's really no course that you can take for college to be with this industry, right? So actually it's my first job. It's
Mm,
my first formal job when I joined a moving company. So with that moving company, I was able to hold my skills in handling expatriates with regards to their both outbound and inbound shipments. So it's more of their household goods. So there be shipping their house, entire household goods from the Philippines or going to their origin country, or some from US then coming here in the Philippines. So then like I think I was with that company for like 10 years.
mhm,
Then I moved to another for another industry,
mhm.
which is IT. Then maybe it's because of the love for the relocation, for the global mobility. I rejoined the company and they put up a relocation here in the Philippines. So they invited me over to join their new mobility company here. So it's a startup. Then we were able to establish that. I've been there like for 5 years for the relocation.
Actually, George and Sheila siguro will also relate. If you're in global mobility, if you're OC, this is something that can work for you. This is like a career that can work for you because when you hire an expat, so you would have to give him the service, okay, and you would have to, of course, the whole household, including the family, will be relocating with the hired person. So that's one. And then it also makes you go through shopping through real estate. So you go through a
Yes.
lot of condos. So that's what I like about it. Because when I was in the Pogo industry as an HR admin, we would be shopping for the condominium units that they would be staying in. So yun. So 'di ba? Exciting yung pag-shop.
Yeah. And
Yes.
Christina, I would just add lang na aside from being OC, I mean, OC is great in terms of organizing lahat ng itinerary for an expat and everything. But I think one key point is dapat flexible and adaptable ka rin, right? Like you
Yes.
can't be going according to your schedule lang because a lot of things can go wrong. As Jen and I will probably attest in all
Yes.
the years we've been, it will never go according to schedule or paper. So you just have to adapt and get through it and advise your
Yes.
expat what to do, how to do it, and just to make everyone happy at the end of the day. But
Yes.
it's really a challenge to be that balance because you want to be organized and prepare everything right for the expat to have the best experience, but sometimes it just
Yes.
doesn't happen. So you just need to have that flexibility then and adaptability to
Yes,
adjust.
I agree with you, Sheila. And see, George, my first question siya kasi George has been maybe he wants to relocate. So anyway, so George, okay. Okay, what's your
Palabas,
first
palabas
question?
ng bansa eh.
Oh, palabas ng bansa ang gusto niya.
Go, George.
Ayan. Okay. So ano, alam mo ito, something that well, before I ask the question, no, and siguro nga, napansin ko kasi when I was with this shared service organization before, that one of the few pioneers of the global mobility space was this organization. And one of the things na nakita ko nga, aside from being OC, no, because itinerary, both OC, you have to be very organized, you have to communicate promptly, and be very, very flexible. Meron pa ako nakitang isang side, and I hope you guys validate this if it's correct. Kailangan din, kasi may side din ng mobility na may may science din involved. And nagulat ako, sabi ko, is it just all about just relocation? Kasi there must be nagugulat ako, marami silang ginagawa nung time namin. May data pa yan, may nag-analyze ng data. Siguro, before I ask that question, typically ba, what is the span of a global mobility skill set or career? So we're talking about relocation, we're talking about hand holding, typically organizing everything from entry up until exit. Pero beyond that, is there any other skill set that spans the global mobility space? And that either Jen or Sheila can answer.
Well, ako, George, for me, there's definitely a science to it behind the scenes. Pero from the expat point of view, I think the feedback I always get from my expat when I was handling cases at the beginning of my career and throughout it was they always appreciated sincerity from the
Yes.
handler. Yung parang, because you're moving the whole family, not just them, but the whole family. It's a human experience. It's not just about work for them. It's also about their personal lives. You're uprooting from one country to another. So you can't just be a secretary and just arrange everything for them and say, hey, okay, ready na lahat, go move there. There has to be some sympathy, there has to be some empathy. You have to talk to them and comfort their family. Kung may concern sila about the country, you have to be like don't worry, there's actually places where you can get that stuff, or you can still go to church or something like this.
Yes.
So these are kind of the concerns that we go through from a relocation standpoint beyond the logistics of it. There's also a human portion of it talaga that you have to be the kind of the face for it and follow through it. And then the science behind it is the data that will help you talaga to carry out all those services that your expatriate will need, like housing market knowledge. For example, I'm sure si Jen maka speak more about this, but if you're going through all these condominiums, they won't know anything what to negotiate for, right? So you need to be
Yes.
that advocate for them, for the assignee, for the expat to say, hey, this is not the landlord is not doing right by you, so let's negotiate this way and that way. So for me, it's really a broad spectrum, if you ask me, like beyond the skill set of parang it's really mostly about being human and a lot of
Yes.
common sense then to follow through everything and be organized about it also and make sure everything's managed before they move. So yeah, I think if that helps.
HR to HR, no?
Yeah.
It's really personalized service, right? It's not just like a normal professional service. It's more of you have to manage their expectations. You have to be honest with them. Like you should always get what is really their need for that certain, like let's say for example, if they're looking for a house, so what is your ideal house that will be a home for your family here in the country? So even like it's just a 2-bedroom, they always say, especially if they have kids, they always what do you call this, it's like they always consider what would be good for their kids. Will they enjoy their relocating to the country? Would it be the same experience
Friends.
from their origin country? Also, so those things like that are very personal. So as much as possible, what we do is we start of the relocation pa lang, we do the needs analysis already. So we need to understand their requirement, their needs, so that we could also give the kind of result that they're expecting. So kahit halimbawa, kung house lang yan, you say it's just a typical two-bedroom house. But when you, let's say you do the home search, you'll not just go to five houses with a two-bedroom. Na that's just their requirement. Normally, we go through like more than 10 houses before we could shortlist the top three that they intend to be their home in the country. So it's very important that you get what they want, and what they want their family to be happy with their relocation, because it's very important that their family would be happy, especially the wife and the kids, because if they'll not be happy relocating in the country, definitely the employee would decide to just go back and repatriate to their origin country. So
Yes.
that's very important when it comes to the relocation.
Yeah. And George, can I just add, like
Yeah,
from an HR hack, this is where it kind of the balancing part comes in. Yeah. So Jen's talking about the employee's experience, but as HR, here I am, I need to make sure the company is also getting what they want. So if, say, for example, you have your expat in Jen's case talking about housing they want, blah, blah, like maybe it's over the budget of the company. Yeah. Like it's your role as global mobility to manage two parts. Yeah. So not just the employee side, but also the corporate side. Like, okay, HR, this is what's happening. What can we do? What can we not do? Set limits like right away from the start, so that you don't get into a pickle later on na mag-aano na ang expat and the company, right? So that's
Yes.
So I can just imagine the dynamics, no, of having to manage those two polar opposites, no. Imagine your expat wants obviously everything to be happy, and that's what we all want for them. Except, and that's why I wanted to see, and I'd be very curious what the checklist or the preparation, because you guys mentioned about the checklist, you mentioned about a needs analysis, and what goes into that when this thing starts, or when a request for expatriation happens. Because just imagine the balance that you would have to go through of managing, okay, this is your budget, kasi syempre pag HR may CNB component yan eh, 'di ba? The home country will always have to make an imposition. Okay, home country will preserve, no, the CNB of the person, or the other option is let the host country manage the CNB, right? So depende, pero definitely may budget yan, kaya nga expatriate eh. Kasi otherwise hindi naman, they will not go through the motions of expatriation. Number one, it will save them cost. Number two, it's easier for them to work with the host country in order to speed up, let's say, a process, a project, or a task that should be done in a limited time, diba? So yun ang question ko. Ano yung laman ng checklist? When you get the order, typically ano yung nilalabas nyong kodigo in order for you to say na, hey, ito yung tama na dapat tinatanong, ito yung dapat nating tinitignan, so that when the expat comes in, we cover everything. Or is it
Ano
really
yung package?
Oh, depending on the needs analysis. Yun.
Yeah, and it's no secret na expatriate assignments are super expensive. Yeah, like
Yes.
no company wants to deploy someone and then stop midway because something's not happening right, and then take them back, and then by then sobrang gastos na at that point when you try to take out. So one thing that we really want to do when you're talking about assessing a candidate, right? Like before you send this person over to anywhere, Usually I check with the HR. Yes, cost is one thing. Definitely, we have to work out all the costs from the start and get approvals for it to make sure committed talaga ang business to send this person and we can afford it as a company for the duration of time that they want and for the family size that they have. Because let's say they just base it on skill and not consider the family factor, and say the expat has 5 kids who are all
Mhm.
school age. When you get to international school, that's already like 100,000 bucks straight
Yes.
away a year for school fees alone, right? So
It's
so
not
these
even
are
100,000.
so yeah, so it's one of these things that of course as corporate, as the business won't think about when they try to take someone out on, like, assign someone an assignment, is that they'll just think he's the perfect guy for the job. But it's our job as global mobility professionals to get that checklist nga na, okay, have you thought about, okay, what's the family size, what's the country combination, ano what location is he from, where is he going to, what's your what's is there anything that might stop him from getting accepted into a country? For example, immigration is a compliance thing. Even if you plan for days and years for a person to come in, if immigration rejects, then how? So that's why we do immigration assessments as well, aside from yung needs analysis and everything. So we do the immigration assessment from the start. Tax assessment is another thing, always undermined, and it's very hard to estimate kasi tax
Mhm.
talaga. So it will never be done upfront, but you already know as experience builds that this is going to be a future um, tax, parang it's a future big significant cost for the company. So that's why it's very important nga that that package comes out and gets approved first before the employee even sees it. Like before they even offer it, all this must kind of really run in the background na to prepare for before they share and commit themselves na hindi na ma-retract, right? And it will be okay, come what may.
So can I add something, George, Sheila? Okay, so when you decide to hire, okay, so when you decide to hire somebody, first is you have to have a parang strategic, parang a direct, a path for the company. Okay, so what kind of technical skills, okay, or skill that you need to hire, okay, because you have to determine whether it's available locally or you have
Yes.
to get internationally or
Exactly.
from your outlet from offshore. Okay, so you have to do that, you have to have a conversation because you have to actually plan that you need that skill for the long term. Mga
Yes.
3 years, okay?
Yes,
Hindi pa
truly.
pwedeng 1 year yan kasi doon pa lang sa uprooting him, malaki na yung yung investment mo.
Yes.
Yes.
So, yon. So at least 3 years, okay? Or three to 5 years. Kasi I worked with a multinational. So it's a conversation. I was the HR here and then there's another HR in Japan. And usually, okay, meron kasing assignment yan, rotation yan ng mga directors. But when they assign the head for the Philippine site, what they do is, nag-ready na yung main, okay, yung Japan main. And then, ikakascade sa amin. Pagdating sa amin, may checklist yan. Okay, single yan, okay, or may pamilya yan. So, you have to have your pool of resources already. And then usually may pinagkukuhaan lang kami ng for real estate. Meron kaming credible na source kasi of course you would want that the place is also secure. That's
Yes.
one.
Of
And
course.
very near a school. So yon. So that's a checklist. Kasi yung sinasabi ni Sheila tsaka ni Jen, you really have to assure, especially the wife. Hindi yung,
Yes.
di ba? I think you can relate that it's always, if it's a male director, male officer, okay, kasi official yan palagi. So you have to always
Yes.
assure that the wife is happy. Kasi happy
Yes.
wife,
Happy
happy
wife,
life
happy
tayo.
life.
Yes.
You can't imagine how many expats have told me this line, Cristina. Mga male expats ko,
Yes.
over the years. Consistent yan. Happy wife, happy life.
Expatriation.
Oh, George.
Yes.
Expatriation. Hindi,
It's
alam mo,
really
Chris,
true.
So, ito for Jen din yung question eh. Kasi ito eh, tama ka Chris no when you said about yun na nga, yung checklist no what exactly are the requirements that we should be taking a look at. But one thing that also I experienced before kasi tama eh, there has to be a plan, it has to be a strategy, there has to be a conversation no that focuses on exactly why having why go through that motion of having to go through expatriation. But there are some organizations, and mind you, there's a lot of them here in the Philippines, shared services organizations, and I'm
Mhm.
sure some of you, Sheila, and even Jen have experienced, and maybe might be good if you can share with us. Huwag nyo na sabihin yung pangalan. But who really has embedded strategies of expatriation. When I say embedded strategy of expatriation, it's part of the functions to do rotation.
Mhm.
Rotation sa iba't ibang countries, no?
Mhm.
Especially if it's different countries that they're covering, no? There are people from the US, punta kayo mag-expatriate kayo sa Pilipinas because it's part of your career development program and vice versa. Mga Pilipino naman, oh, because you're good talent and I see that you can actually contribute more in a specific role, I'll bring you to another country. So guys, can you share to us an experience na may ganun kayo? Na tipong, and how do you manage that? Kasi that's like a non-stop party, di ba? Parang 24 by 7 if you're going to manage something like that.
Yeah. So when I was in this company, tech company before, we call it the nomad program. So it's
Mhm.
about sending people for short stints, mga 3 to 6 months, to different locations around the world to just get a feel of the market. And then they come back with fresh knowledge, and it's supposed to inspire creativity and everything else into that person who gets chosen for that program, right? So yeah, I mean, an expat is not just those 1 to 3 year expat durations anymore. In the modern world, it's well, even in the past, also there's short term assignments din
I
naman
see.
that
Yes.
are really for developmental, for career advancement, and so on. So there are those aside from the traditional executives, and you also have like the trainees
Mm.
who do need to get sent also. um
Yes.
yeah, we used to call them like these aside from being nomads, they're also like globe. I forgot what it stands for now, but it was a globee. Like it has to be like something about them being a citizen of the world.
Ah,
You
Yes.
okay.
really settle down. It's like a global internship in a way, but we had
Yes.
to support it because of the international arrangement. So it's one of these things that again you have to balance again the company's needs, because it's a trainee. Do you really want to give them all the benefits that a traditional long-term expat would have, or a traditional short-term
Yeah.
expat would have? Definitely no, right? So you'd have to
Yes.
tweak the package, get it into a smaller scale para sustainable din siya for the numbers that
Yes.
you're going to have. So if like for that nomad program, we used to have like around any 50 people at any time going around the world doing the rotation program. So yes, we embed all the processes now. Like we know what to do. There's the immigration, tax, housing, everything checked na by then before and then it's just a matter of placing that employee into the program. But if something happens nga, then yeah, you kind of have to kind of do some manual intervention. But otherwise, most BPOs I know, I've also worked with a few of them, is my very set established process na, which really helps. Like I think that OC part na Christina mentioned
Mm.
before really comes in there, and it's really effective for these BPO cases. But like some things you can't predict, like COVID, for example, it was one thing, right? When everything
Yes.
happened, COVID, what happened to the people that you're sending out? They get stuck or they can't come back. So you have to really do everything you can. Um, that get every resource that you can to get them where they need to be.
Yes.
So it's one of those things that normal talaga for a global mobility professional to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Great.
Well,
Then you were saying something. Oh, sorry. Go.
yeah, like actually, in there's a popular BPO here. I remember because my brother-in-law, he got sent siguro mga short stint nga. It's part of his training. So that's it. So, kind of like familiar yung Globy something, yung ano na yan. Okay. Medyo natatandaan.
You're right.
Ito na yung kumpanya na yan.
Ah, so, how about Jen? Jen?
With us naman, ma'am, here, since we are a local provider, we experienced din mga ganyan na from BPOs. They're like mga 3 months lang here in the Philippines, up to 6 months lang. They just stay here, then they come back. It's like what the BPO company says. It's just like they're transferring the technology or the knowledge that they have to the Filipinos. Then after that, they have to return to their country of origin. Then another set again. So it's like every month there's a different set of nationalities coming in. So sometimes there's an influx of Japanese, sometimes an influx of Indians. So depending on the project that they have.
Okay, linawin lang natin for our viewers. So when we talk of global mobility now, okay, so there are local employees, okay, Filipinos that are being sent offshore, and then there are other nationalities that are working here in the Philippines. So it's not one-sided. Kasi baka iniisip nila puro walang Filipino dito, alam mo naman. So anyway, okay, so this is an exchange. Okay, so mobility is this movement of people in and out of the country because of work. Yun. So George, are you ready? Kasi we actually have requested our guests to walk us through the long process ba yun of acquiring the paper. So for any of our guests, so can we have a checklist of those very important papers that we have to process for our expats and their families? So maybe Jen can start.
Yeah, sure, ma'am. So we'll talk about like the visa and immigration. So let's say, for example, there's a new expat coming in the Philippines. So let's say his assignment would be for 2 years. So if that would be for 2 years, we need to secure a working visa and a working permit as well. So let's start upon arriving in the country. So once they arrive in the country, they'll have an entry visa. So if there are not restricted nationals, so meaning the restricted nationals are like the Indians, the Chinese, they have to secure an entry visa from the Philippine consulate of the origin country. But if there are not restricted nationals here in the country, they could just enter, like US citizens, they could just easily enter in the Philippines. So upon entry in the country, they'll be given a 9A visa or a tourist visa that's valid for 30 days. Okay. So once the visa has expired for 30 days, you have to ensure that before its expiry, you have to update that visa. Or you can be you'll have an immigration issue because you should have an updated visa to legally stay in the country. But if that is for work, like expatriates who will be working here in the country, the company or the employer should secure a working visa or a working permit for them. So if the case is he'll be working here in the Philippines for 2 years, we need to apply for a working visa. So it depends on the type of company. If the company is a PESA registered, there's a different visa.
Mm-hmm.
It's called 4782 visa. Then if it's under BOI, if it's a EO226, wherein they have a regional headquarters here in the country, they called it EO226 or the ROHQ visa.
Mm-hmm.
So those visa really depends on the company registration. So if it's BOI or PESA registered, it's a different thing. If they're not registered with PESA or BOI, normally it's 9G visa, the commercial visa. Okay, so before you'll be able to secure a 9G visa, you have to have an alien employment permit. That's what you're talking about earlier, ma'am, that what is the AEP that is being secured from DOLE. So that's an alien employment permit. You have to secure that from the Department of Labor here in the country to ensure that the DOLE normally protects our Filipino workers. So
Mhm.
um, especially nowadays, they come up with a new memo. All companies will be hiring expatriates. They need to post a job publication with
Yes.
all the newspapers. So
Yes.
that delays the process actually. So I mean, with the COVID thing, it again prolongs the process of securing the working permits and working visas. So before you'll be issued an alien employment permit, you have to post a job publication, not via JobStreet or any online platforms. It should be on a newspaper of general publication.
O, pwede na sa
So,
Tempo yan.
or Abante, ma'am.
No, but
Like
yeah, that's a new
Inquirer, Manila Bulletin.
that's another expense. Kasi actually,
Yes.
so ito na yung sinasabi natin, you have to be prepared, you have to be flexible, and then you have to adjust. Because actually with all my years dealing with expatriates also, with DOLE, there are memos and decisions and circulars not published. Okay, you have to be in the know, especially when you update the AEP. Bila na lang masyashock ka, ay may rule, may circular na ganon.
Yes. They don't normally publish. As per experience, ma'am, malalaman mo na lang siya kapag nagpa-file ka na.
Oh, mamumuting
Sila lang
talaga yung ano
Sila,
mo.
sila lang yung nakakaalam ng ruling.
Well, actually, you will now know who was currently doing that function because yung rule na yon parang mga 2 days ago lang pinost yun or nababumulaga. So,
I think it was published last week. So last week, then you have to post the job publication like at least 2 weeks prior applying for the AEP. So kung merong halimbawa na Filipino na is capable of doing the job, kailangan mo pang ipoprove kay DOLE that mas capable si expatriate, that you need the skill set of that particular foreign national.
Hirap
yes.
niyan dyan. Filipinos can do everything.
Yes!
Can
So,
do better, right?
sobrang naghihigpit talaga sila. Super.
Pero true dyan, alam mo, in all the countries I've managed Americas region, EMEA region, Asian region. I must say, ang Philippines talaga, along with China, Vietnam, Cambodia, these are the, pag may transfers ako that I know are going into these countries, parang I hold my breath na and guys, prepare mga 3 months minimum.
Yes, 3 months. It's not just 3 months. Even
can be
if
longer, yeah?
Yeah, it can be longer, especially during the pandemic. We even have filings like it was approved after 1 year. Then when it was issued, the 47A2 or the 9G visa was already approved. When you receive the passport, you need to again file for the renewal.
I had a case dyan na that we applied for the visa, right? And it took almost a year nga. And then, pauwi na yung expat ko. Tapos, my gosh, tahimik na lang tayo. Let's not say a word.
Well, totoo yan. Kasi that's why we never, ako kasi before, I cannot really say for sure. Kasi this was a time that when I handled it, yung panahon pa ni Pinoy. And there was that time was really tumultuous for a certain group of nationals because of, Pogo. Okay, so hindi namin masabi that there was a time nga tapos na, as in nag-renew na lang kami ng tourist visa. And then pagkatapos ng 3 years, yun, papauwiin na siya kasi 3 years lang naman yung contract nila. Yes. So that's
the reality of Philippine immigration, yeah. And then I think for us, a reverse din, like when you send people out from the Philippines to somewhere else, you have that POEA clearance din that people cannot understand, right?
Yeah, you have to secure pa. and they have to secure it personally. I think it will not be allowed to a representative. They have to secure it personally para parang recorded sila kay POEA na pumasok sila sa database ni POEA.
Teka, ito baliktarin natin. Paano yung
Pinoy na Pinoy.
Oo.
It's very characteristic of us.
So, can you advise naman itong mga those who want to be OFWs like nurses, they actually want to work abroad. So, would you have any idea how the process is?
Well, I'm sure they'll be subject to the POEA
Yes,
and the OFW clearance then.
Mhm.
But typically, like for those who want to work outside of Singapore, it's usually easier to get that work visa to where they are going, right? And
Actually, sinabi nga sa akin, 2 days lang sa Malaysia.
Right?
Yes, actually, I had
Months, 2 days.
2 days. Kasi I had a Singaporean he's like a customer service person, and then he was supposed to go through training in Malaysia. Sabi niya sa akin, I can't understand the setting, the environment here, kasi if you go to Malaysia, correct me if I'm wrong, that he said that it took only 2 days and it was computerized and it was, very clear yung mga instructions. Kasi yung dito, mayun nga, my experience, magugulat ka na lang na, may ganun pala.
Saka may mga ano pa, ma'am, diba,
Compliance na.
and you have this mga internal dialogues pa with PESA sometimes na it's
Yes,
off the record, like off the record, sige fine,
Yes.
we'll allow you to renew kahit you didn't renew it 30 days in advance. Parang mga ganyan na.
Yes, may
Internal dialogues na. When I mentioned it to my immigration provider, kasi we have global immigration vendors like Fragoman, Immigra, and all the Newland Chase. So there are companies who really specialize in immigration, right? But they
Yes.
get stumped also when it comes to these kinds of discussions of Philippines, because they're like, that's not in the process, Sheila. I know, but if they said, PESA said it, then we say yes, it's possible.
Actually, there was a time that I had to ask the representative, okay, can you please email me so I can show to my boss?
Yes.
Oo.
It's very hard to explain about the process. So even us, mga clients namin, we always we ask them, most of the government agencies kasi they don't do black and white. So they'll just tell you, normally it's verbal,
Yes.
especially if there's a new ruling. So I'll normally ask, where's the copy of the memo? Can you secure a copy of the memo? Then they'll tell you, we don't have the copy of the memo. It was just verbally advised by the main office. So it's always like that. So it's very rare that you get really the actual memo as guideline.
Kasi this is the one that happens in immigration. So actually, you're not allowed to be with the expat when you process. Okay, yun. Okay, it's not allowed na. Kaya mahirap makipag-usap. Pero you get to talk to somebody, okay? Like we had also an immigration consultant before. Okay, and then may conversation. Kasi yung expat, dalawa kami dadating. May interview siya for the visa, for the 9G
Yes.
visa. Pero nandun ako sa Starbucks, naghihintay. Kasi you're not allowed to go in there. Kasi that's what happened. Well, in 2015, you were allowed. In 2013, you were allowed pa. Pero yung ngayon, later part, hindi ka na allowed. So, that's one. Okay, so it's hard. And then you have an expat. Actually, yung expat, hindi niya kasi naiintindihan yung nangyayari because everyone speaks in Tagalog. So, he's very scared. I had my boss, okay, he's actually the CEO when we were doing his papers. Like, don't leave me! Ganon yung sinasabi niya sa akin. No, I'll just be here at Starbucks, okay? Like, you will be fine. You will be fine. I'll leave you with Manong, okay? He will
with with the processor.
Yeah, that's the process. I'll leave you with him. Okay, he will be fine. And then after that, on our way back to the office, and I don't understand him. Yeah, well, actually, he was just doing his job. So we already went through the routine. So, ano, parang natatakot sila doon. Kasi ang gagawin lang sa'yo, ito ha, tuturo lang nila. Yung when they point pa, they don't use their hands, they use their mouth. So, ganun sila. Ganon. Yun yung sinasabi sa akin ng boss ko. All they did was ganon. So, yun yung funny story sa amin. Kaya, yung boss ko na yun, takot na takot every time mag-renew ng visa niya.
Pero I think
It hasn't changed that much, Cristina. I must say, yung process ng Philippine immigration now, it's still convoluted, still complicated, and
yes.
it will need expert navigation like Jen will do.
Just klaruhin lang natin sa viewers natin, okay? We're just recounting how funny it is kasi wala ka nang magagawa dito, okay? That's why we
true.
just focus on the humor of it, okay? That's how it is, okay? I mean, you get somebody, like we had an assistant before, she gave up. Sabi, ma'am, I will just go to marketing. I will not be in HR anymore. Please transfer me to marketing.
Sobrang ano kasi sa atin, masyadong bureaucratic and masyadong maraming paperworks. Super daming paperworks when you file a visa application. Super daming papel na they've asked for it.
Okay. And this is one parang key point din na parang if I go to my immigration vendor, right? Ito yung not the Philippine lawyer, not the immigration lawyer in the Philippines, but let's say a global immigration vendor. And you see their fees, diba, for different fees for each country on immigration fees. And there's always a premium pag Philippines. And I always think, deserving ito. Deserving. Like, I will not even challenge it. It's like Indonesia. Deserve. Cannot challenge this either. It's still like if you know the process of Philippine immigration, you will understand na why this kind of premium talaga. But yeah, in reality though, I get into arguments with the business all the time. Now, why are we paying this vendor so expensive, Sheila? Why can't we do it in-house? Like, you can try, but
good luck.
Before you go.
Well, business-wise, George, you have a question.
No, go ahead, Cristina. Sunod ako.
Okay, so I'll just a comment. Okay, so kasi a lot of people want to do it in-house. You know, when we did it in-house, I had a staff of 13 because we had an employee base, okay, 200 expats, okay, Malaysians, Singaporeans, and Chinese, okay, and then we had 30 Filipino call center agents kasi kailangan meron kang balance, sinasabi nila. But then kasi that 13 people kasi somebody like 2 people are doing the management of the housing, okay, so yun yung ginagawa nila. Yung manage nila yon, monitoring of the bills, monitoring of the actually meron pa nga
maintenance of the house,
cleanliness nga. Yes, yung hygiene, diba?
Don't forget the swimming pool cleaning.
Yes.
Even getting a maid for them.
And the pets.
Yes, pets. Actually,
even pets are included.
And yun nga, yung sourcing of kasambahay. Okay, so kasama yon. Hindi kayo dapat ma-shock doon. So I had 2 people there. And then I had my entertainment group kasi ito, remember that these people, they're in the Philippines, ito lang yung buhay nila. They're just employed by the company. So you have the entertainment group, okay, that's supposed to give them entertainment. I mean, meaning to say, pag weekend, lalabas kayo, then they had to be escorted to like safer places. So
Yes.
that's why it was HR and admin. And mind you, 200 lang, mga 250 lang yung empleyado ng company ko na yon. But we had 13, I had a staff of 13 HR and admin
Mm.
people. Okay, so ganun siya ka-extensive. That's why itong sinasabi ni Sheila, I agree, it's expensive if you do it in-house kasi
Yes.
mahirap yan. Tsaka ano yan, 24 hours yan na ano.
Yeah, yeah, it's on call, di ba?
Yes.
Wala kang buhay doon.
But we even have mom experience maintenance of the house. The wife keep calling. In a day we receive like four to five calls from her.
Dapat nga
It's a-
interviewin yung
quite
wife
it's
eh.
quite a headache talaga.
Kasama yung wife sa interview kasi you
Oo,
have
kasi
to
sila talaga yung nasusunod.
uh, but
Yeah. There are the stellar, parang, ano tawag yan? Hall of Fame cases that we will never forget throughout our tenure as global mobility professionals. Like, I still have my top 3 best and my top 3 worst. Mga ganyan. But all in all, they give such a good, parang, this is why mobility never gets boring. This is what I always tell people who are interested, who show an interest in mobilities. Well, what there's one thing is that it will never get boring because your issues will never
Yes.
be the same. Yes, it could be about housing, but it could be first different things about
Yes.
housing. It could be about insurance. It could be about it's a lot. It's so wide ranging and covers so many things. Na, yeah, it never really gets boring until like I've been in the industry with like 15 plus years na nga, and it still surprises me to this day. Na some cases will come up and I'm like, huh? Pwede ba yan? Like, what are you requesting again?
so Sheila, can I ask you, okay, so when you have your budget approved as HR, what are the items there that are very crucial? Kayong tipong talagang kailangan mo for your HR
Non-negotiable.
operations. Oo.
Ang cost estimates ko, Christina, are usually include my biggest cost items are always the tax, immigration, housing, schooling, and car transportation is usually up there too. But typically, ito consolidated all through a cost estimate na may template na. And we usually just either have it run by a vendor or ako, I'll do it myself, depending on which like the company I'm in right now. I try to do it in-house and we don't have that many naman, so I feel like I can personally manage it. But these are like my typical cost items in the cost estimate. And what I like to do also is, like, if I have a relocation vendor, what I will ask them to do is like, it's best kasi for me, the best model in my mobility parang programs is when they're centralized into one vendor. So like, for
Yes.
example, one vendor does all the housing stuff, the payments, the expense reimbursements. So at the end of it all, they can report of it. So usually I'll call in a business review, a quarterly, semi-annual, or annual business review. Usually pag semi-annual, I'll ask them to just give me a quarterly short update on what's happening quarterly to make sure everything's running smoothly. But in those business reviews, they can show kasi like how much was spent on housing, how much was spent on
Yes.
schools, how much was spent on taxes, mga ganyan, which is really helpful. And throughout the years, I would say ang highest cost ko usually is always on tax for some reason.
Well,
Yes.
oo.
For some reason, taxes really just come out of the top versus the other
Housing.
vendor fees. And then yes, housing is next. And
Yes.
depending on the profile of your assignee, schooling could be there too. But
Yes.
typically, these are my big ticket items when I do that costing for
Oh.
assignment approvals.
Oh, yan. So, kasi people have been, and they are curious. So, magkano kaya ang HR budget dyan? Okay, so yun.
It really varies. And kaya these days, we have what we call core flex approach now, which is a way to parang it's a way to compromise with the business, yeah? So traditionally kasi, you have these set of benefits for your expats, for example, let's say long-term expat siya, and then there's no choice. The business has to comply and get budget for all these items na nasa list mo and apply it for this expat coming into the Philippines, for example. But nowadays, we have this core flex approach na we're just picking on the essentials. So, pag hindi siya masyadong essential, for example, language training, does he really need to speak in Filipino? Parang hindi naman, right? So, let's put that in the flex bucket. Or let's, yung mga cross-cultural training, yes, cross-cultural training helps in assimilating the expat to the new location. Pero will he not also kind of learn naman naturally by being in the country?
Yes, yes.
So these are the parang the balances that you kind of just assess now, which is essential for you and your, because different companies will prioritize it differently, right? But they will have a core basket of parang services, and they will have a flex one. So you can kind of pick or choose what works best for that expat, and you can trim down the cost because you don't have to provide all, right? Kasi mas ano na lang siya. Of course, you don't want to compromise tax and immigration, so that will always be there.
Yes, it's always there.
And medical insurance these days kasi COVID cannot be ano din. But yeah, so other than that, right? So you can kind of customize it. It's a bit of work nga because it's not very equitable na nga because it's going to be different per person if you think about it, right? Like if you give a flex approach, then you could be potentially giving different packages to different people, but we rationalize it as per need. Like say for example, shipment is such a big cost item. At minimum 10,000 US for a 20-foot container going anywhere. So if you're a single person, you don't really need a 10-foot container, right? You won't have that many goods to ship, but you use it because you have no choice. It's always so what we do with the flex approach is we put that in a flex bucket, and instead maybe there's another benefit there that will like a excess luggage or miscellaneous allowance. Now you give instead, and that way you can pay for your excess luggage or pay your own way of shipping your stuff, but at least you save the company money with not having to do a true shipment of 10K, right? So that's
parang personal na lang niya gawin yun, hindi na yung company.
Or purchase something similar na lang dito.
So it gives that flexibility. So that's why we like this approach. So it's kind of not very traditional anymore, but it still keeps to the parang compliance of it. So the government side of it is still addressed. Everything's still like nothing's we're not giving away anything that's not within the policy din. So it's still addressing HR policies, and it's addressing compliance and governance. So employee happiness is there also. So I like to call it my happy triangle.
So balance, talagang kailangan mo i-balance yun.
Yes. But
yes, okay. I was going to ask kasi can Jen, okay, can you cite, okay, what was the most difficult parang project for you? Do you have a story? What was the most difficult?
Difficult
Or challenging?
Very challenging. I think it's more of I handled one expat with a wife. That's what I'm telling earlier. Na she called me like 4 to 5 times a day because of the maintenance of the house. Because imagine, ma'am, it's every day that she calls me regarding the maintenance of the house because the landlord is not that
responsive.
Responsive with her concerns. So she keeps on bagging. So it's like it's almost like I'm into her house. I visit her house like almost every day na para lang ma-solve yung mga issues niya. Kasi ang problem kasi is that they chose a house na old na kumbaga the maintenance cost talaga is mataas na. Kasi they want it lang na parang to be on the budget. So ganon. So kumbaga parang nagkaroon at the middle of the assignment nagkaroon ng issues syempre yung house. So ang maintenance issue talaga ang sakit sa ulo kasi parang nasira, let's say for example na may nasira doon sa CR. So they keep on digging the CR. So hindi pa rin nila mahanap ang problema.
Actually, palaging CR ang ang challenge.
Yes.
Ano ba ginagawa
may
nila
tumulo. What?
Alam niyo
Not
naman ang
go there,
plumbing
Cristina.
dito sa-
Baka you uncover more things we didn't we don't want to know.
Yes,
So yun
George?
talaga ma'am yung very challenging as in everyday.
Trademark yan trademark ng Pilipinas. Plumbing natin.
Plumbing. Yes. Ang mga bara sa mga what do you call that, sa bubong ng house. Yan palagi yung problema nila. Palaging may mga tulo sa houses. So yan naman yung very challenging na halos every day is tatawagan ka na wala ka na ibang magawa kundi pumunta na lang sa kanya para lang ma-appease siya, and ikaw na mismo yung para lang matapos, ikaw na magko-coordinate lahat kahit it's beyond the scope of work namin, and it's beyond the kumbaga parang normally for a relocation kasi kapag destination services parang we give like parang 3 months or 2 months lang after they move in ng support. So it's beyond that na parang it's like on their 5th or 6th months already. Pero what we do lang is inano na lang namin siya, minanage na lang namin para lang gumaan ang buhay niya, and hindi na rin kami palaging kukulit. Kasi it's everyday talaga, everyday she'll call you, everyday magrereklamo siya about the house and everything. So luckily we're able to complete everything na nasolve namin lahat. So yun lang talaga, hindi ko talaga siya makakalimutan kasi halos araw-araw kulang na lang sa kanila ako tumira. During that time.
But that's the good thing, because that's the reason why I think when I talk to other people who has this function, sinasabi naman ng mga expats, they like a Filipino to handle this kasi we're very empathic, okay, yon, and patient.
Yes. And you must have a lot of patience.
And I think ang kailangan talaga din for like the vendors namin sa Philippines, like ako, I always say this to my vendors na it doesn't matter anong company sila, but it's really about the person who knows how to deal with the expat and willing to go the extra mile. Kasi chances are sa Philippines, you will always need that extra mile.
Yes, it's always. Always. Parang there's no instant na walang extra mile. Kailangan talaga palagi. Parang kasama na siya talaga sa package. Yung extra mile na yan. Kasama na yan
sa budget ko dyan, by the way.
Kailangan kino-costing na yung extra mile.
But true. But what? Sorry, I'll just add really quickly though about that part na sabi mo dyan na they were just wanting that old house because para under the budget. Kasi one thing also that I can share with you is some companies offer an incentive if you rent below or within your housing budget. So like whatever savings you have, it's 50% cut between employee and the company. It's a common benefit, to encourage you to save on rental. So that's why some employees go this extra mile. Pero in one of the big lessons we learned was issues like that nga na sa Pilipinas, diba? We stopped that benefit specifically for Philippines, India, China, so specific countries where we know housing issues are crazy. We tell assignees there's no option for you to use any get any savings, okay? So just utilize your whole budget para makafocus talaga sila on finding an apartment
a good
for
house
them, and not even think about scrimping it kasi it's for security, right? You can go to the local housing also and just for the sake of getting that split. So I think that's one key thing that mobility managers should also think about when they're planning benefits for expats. Think if it's gonna be applicable for them in that location or not.
Yeah, because some expats they would really save it talaga.
Of course. Kaya nga yung sa hiring pa lang, we're quite careful of what to tell them as incentive. Kasi they're actually very aggressive when they
Yeah.
ask about the incentives. Like, do I have do you offer incentives when I save on the budget? Mga
Yeah.
tatanungin talaga nila
Yeah.
yan. So this is different, Georgia. Yung mga kung tayo tumataas na sa 37,000 na Atenean, there was an Atenean, there was like something as a news item a week before this. Meron daw new grad who graduated from that school and asked and declined a job offer na 37,000. So nagulat yung recruiter doon. But when you hire expats, you have to be prepared during the interview kasi they're really straightforward.
Yeah.
That's why we give them an ano, like when you meet the expat na talaga, like all the approvals are done and you're ready to communicate na the package to the expat, we usually have a formal letter, assignment letter, and sometimes a balance sheet to show them that, hey, this is what you're getting. Estimated lang, of course, until you kind of reach there and depending on the
Yes.
forex and everything. But at the end of the day, it gives you an idea na this is what you'll be earning. And this is for each one. We have to go through one by one nga na, hey, remember, this one can't be done with savings, or, this one can't be in cash. If you decide not to use it, it's gone. Yeah. Or this one, you can try to maximize by doing this or that. But it's really important nga that which Jen alluded to earlier also, na expectation setting talaga has to be very clear from the start, not just
Yeah.
on about the location, but also on their financial package, since
Yes.
it's really the story of the expat's life, right? Also,
Yes.
what makes up their package.
So that answers George's question. Okay, what is your checklist? So first is you have to make sure that you have a package. Okay, to show them. Okay, the more detailed, the better. It's a balance sheet, and then you give them a list of maybe requirements like birth certificate, etc., that they can prepare. So, kasi they need that marriage certificate,
Everything, an
birth
immigration.
Yeah.
certificate. Okay, so that's what they can prepare. And then for some nationals, 'di ba may ano sila, there's like an ID. I think for Chinese, okay, they have an ID na that they need to also, we need to photocopy. Sa,
It varies depending
it
on which
depends.
country they come
Yeah.
from,
Depends.
but that will be provided talaga from the onset um, for the immigration purpose. And also, yung ano, tax briefings are very important too. So
Yes.
before they even start, you want them to understand what
How the
will
tax system
happen.
works.
Yes,
Yeah.
kasi different companies do it differently, right? So there are some
Yes.
who tax
Yes.
equalize. So tax equalization is simple. Okay, fine. You won't get impacted by the assignment at all. So just leave all the extra to us, so to the company. But there are some who don't do equalization. So they just do
Yeah.
parang protection. So it's
Mm.
not always the same because you still get a bit taxed on some of the home compensation schemes. So it's important and I think imperative talaga to understand it para walang surprises. So we always make it a point na before an assignee or expat accepts an assignment, they have to go through like these tax briefings first and understand what they're getting into. Kasi like I said, taxes can be
Yeah.
the hidden hidden.
Even
Kasi
yes.
yung take home pay nila, yun
Yeah,
Yeah.
yung,
na,
oo.
Yeah.
it can't be like it can't be brushed under the rug and deal with later. Like it has to be
Yes.
addressed upfront, hopefully. And but if you have equalization, then it really makes things easier though.
Yes.
So it has something to do with ano expectations management. Okay. Kasi like
Yeah.
for example, kasi kami, we just simplified it. I think it's equalization, yung gross up mo. So you have like, you offer them the net amount that's in your job offer. And then when they ask about that, tax. Pero mas
Just
expensive to
gross
sa
up.
gross up mo la lang.
Mhm.
Pero that's like depende yon, if you have a lot, then that can be, business wise, it's not good for you, okay, for the company. Pero kung konti lang naman yung expats nyo, you can do that method. Cross it up na lang.
Right. So it
Yes.
varies really and depends on a number of parang approach dependent din sa corporate tax institution ng company mo. So that's one thing that I kind of appreciate then from mobility is you work this part, right? The immigration part, logistics part, that's one thing. The finance part is also a different section of the mobility part, but there's also like all the legal team that you have to work with, the corporate tax team to work with also on your tax permanent establishment, mga these mga tax issues from a corporate side, not just from the individual
Yeah.
expat side, but just the corporate one too. So there's really so many facets. And the last one that I always kind of don't want to get involved in, but I usually get pulled into is accounting. Alam mo yung mga cross-charge na.
Yeah.
How do you deal with a cross-charge from country A to country B, cross up there?
Ayun.
Itong-ito na ako. Okay. And ang sama pa nito is I graduated in accountancy.
Okay.
Like it.
And I keep thinking, this is why I became HR. So
Then
hard.
mahirap yung mga yan kasi it's a different different system in one country, different the
Yes.
system in another.
And you know, from what we're hearing right now, no, and siguro parang just to knock off our senses. It's really more practical. If you were an organization who's going into this for the first time, or if you've been doing this and it's costing you so much, it makes terrible sense to just outsource it to more capable providers unless you have the headcount and the talent and experience to do it in-house.
Yes.
So we're not saying
Yes.
na hindi mo pwede gawin. Katulad nila Cristina. Sila
Correct.
Cristina
Yes.
kasi they can do it because
Mhm.
you have
They
Cristina.
have 13 people.
And you have an army
Yeah.
of specialists that you can rely on, admins, di ba? If you're doing it on your own.
Pero expensive siya. Super
It's
expensive.
Yeah, because you have to employ them regularly.
Exactly. Plus, and then definitely bukod sa expensive, syempre, talent, I mean, we're assuming that global mobility experts or specialists such as you two, syempre, it's not really cheap to be able to acquire you as a head count, no, for an organization. Kasi because of the experience, the sheer experience and the multitasking, the management, everything that you have under your belt. So that being said, you have to be prepared as an organization in order for you to go into this. Now, the other option is sigurado, hindi mo naman pwede pigilan yan, di ba? Hindi mo naman pwede pigilan yan. Kung may ma-expatriate, the best way is to just ask the experts. Di ba? Defer to the consultant.
Yeah.
Defer to the people who do it best. Para at least it saves you money, it saves you time, it saves your face as an HR person.
I am such a believer on this, George. Alam mo, dati, I had this case na coming into the Philippines. Bago pa lang ako to just manage Philippines, ha? And then I was kind of shocked when they said na, okay, your Philippines work permit, you have to only apply for it upon arrival, and the employee cannot work for 8 weeks until makuha nila yung work visa. And then I was like, talaga? So what will they do for those 8 weeks kung hindi sila pwedeng mag-work? And then, but this was because it was the process really ng in-house model ng time na yun. But then when we got the expert nga to come in and consult, sabi ng expert, actually no need to wait those many weeks. You can
Yes.
actually apply for the SWP also and blah, blah, blah. There's a way to get around that time. So I was like, oh my gosh, all those 8 weeks now we've spent waiting for this
Yeah.
visa. All that ways
So we just stayed at the hotel
yes,
for 8 weeks.
that's where the expertise matters, right? Like if you have, if we had just asked the expert from the start is this really in the process how to do it in the Philippines? Then if we had just accepted that, then yeah, we could have wasted everyone's 8 weeks at the point of arrival. But now that
Imagine 8 weeks.
yeah, so it was 4 to 8 weeks. Yung parang sabi nila to get that final for final work visa. So I was just happy when we finally embraced the expert consultation piece. Na there you go, because as in-house din, one of the troubles of in-house din is you get complacent. Like you do the process so many times, so many ways, you don't keep up to date with the updates that happen, right?
Yes.
So parang you're not really an expert. You're an expert in the process, but you're not really absorbing like the updates from the government, different ways other people are managing it. So parang that's the I think the value of having the expert companies do it, because they will have a bigger picture. Na they'll
Yeah.
know like, okay, we've seen companies do this before, so what we've suggested is this. So
Yeah.
that's one value I see talaga in asking the experts, as for
Yeah.
what you said.
Imagine, ma'am, if I may add, the 8 weeks that you're telling, instead of them waiting for 8 weeks, if you have filed for like a provisional work permit, you'll
Yeah.
get that in 3 days. In
Yeah.
3 days, after 3 days, your
Exactly.
expat can work already.
Exactly, but because no
See?
one knew about the
Yeah.
PWP ng ano na for that company I was working with, then
Yeah.
we just wasted all that time waiting for your
Yes.
So he's
Imagine that.
being
Nasa wildflower lang sila araw-araw.
yeah, di
oo,
ba? Parang
Starbucks,
waiting for your
Starbucks.
holiday. 8-week holiday.
Yeah,
Go there.
holiday.
Don't work.
Ang hilig pa naman nila mag-Starbucks. Yun yung yun yung budget ko pag meeting eh. Kasi, well, can we have Starbucks? Ganun. But, one thing I learned lang, okay, if you're doing it in the Philippines, I always avoid yung Burr months, okay? Kasi pag inabot ka
Yes.
na ng Burr months, kahit September yan, ano yan, sa January yan, January na yan. So, that's
January na yan, yes.
So that's why I just tell, and anyone who employs me as their HR head, can we not do the hiring in August or September? Can we just do it at
Yeah,
the
because
start of
it's
the year?
season, holiday season.
Oo, yun yung a-avoid.
They're always on a break.
Yeah, we're not naming you. Okay. Okay, but that's like really a hard time, okay? Because that's why our expats also know it's actually a joke that our holiday season for the Yuletide season is actually among the longest kasi nga pag alam nila na pagka nag-expire yung kanilang papers, sila mismo they actually tell you mga as early as June or July kasi pagka-aabot na yan ng September, minaplano na kasi nila yung vacation nila with
Yes.
the single ones, okay, they would tell you na this is my plan for the holiday also. So, can you please do something about it? Kung single kasi, wala silang problema with yung mga spouses. But, pagdating nung natin, holiday season, mahaba sila mag-vacation, mga 1 month, 2 months, ganon.
Yes.
So, they would tell you talaga that, can you do something because baka when I come in, I might be detained because nag-expire na. Ganon.
Nag-expire ang visa.
True. And I think kasi like pati the renewals, they still need like the actual passport na kailangan to pick up, and then right, like you have to plan your holidays around it because you know that during renewal wala kang passport, so it's really parang advanced planning at the end of it all, diba? That you have to really plan out everything so that it can go smoothly. But even then, it might not go smoothly. But hey, we're used to it.
So at least you're there, okay, and then they can also parang reach you anytime, diba? They can ask you questions, etc. So yun yung mga actually requirements ng job na yun. Anyway, si George, having heard this, would you still want to be an expat of another country, George?
Oo naman.
Ay, kasi baby ka. Ikaw yung baby kasi you're the special talent.
Tayo lang ang
So I would prefer to be the expat spouse. Not the
Good job. Good decision.
We have two things that we have to manage: our work and the wife. Diba?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can go both ways, George. If you're a female expat, I'll manage the same my husband and work. But still, I think the best arrangement is being the expat spouse.
Yes.
You don't have work to worry
demand.
about, right? You can just there was one expat who told me, Sheila, that my wife has such a good life here. Don't tell me about it.
Well, I'm glad that his wife is having a good time. So that means
Yes,
that
at
you're
least he can
doing a
stay
good job.
longer.
Oh, he can work in peace. Ganun lang yon.
Oo naman.
The secret to happy employees, happy married employees is to manage the expectation of the spouse.
Yes, that's true.
Mm. Pero yun nga eh, and also yun, ako kasi ay pag kaya I have this nightmare with the toilet kasi yun yung palaging problema namin eh. Parang umagang-umaga pa lang, pupunta, mag-email sa may kasi we have like an email for their concerns. Pag inopen mo yun, my toilet was not working well, mga ganon. And then my shower is not working well, mga ganon
The
yun.
doorknobs broke. Even the doorknobs, if it's broke, they'll call you.
Iniisip ko nga kung paano nabibrake yung doorknob eh. It's possible. I have a doorknob, my doorknob at home. Actually, I had that conversation with one. You know what? I've been the same condo for 25 years. I've never broken the doorknob. How is it possible?
Because it's an old house. No, it's
Oh,
it's the antique na.
oh,
Antique doorknob.
oh.
Sa
And
mahal
actually,
pala palitan, di ba? Because it's antique. Oh my gosh, paano mo siya palitan? Who's gonna take care of the cost? Yan pa yan. Isa, di ba, is the
Yes.
when you exit when you're finally leaving and you need to exit, and then the inspection happens, and then the damages, the negotiations.
Yes, true.
That's one of the hardest parts ng job mo dyan. I think
Yes.
yeah.
Sometimes, well, for me, it's very rare naman na we're not able to refund the security deposits, because what I do is that we normally have the files. Now we take photos during the transfer, their move in. Then we take photos upon their departure. So we always explain to them, this is the actual condition of this. Let's say, for example, this table, no scratch. You see, there's no scratch, no pinch. Then we even encountered one expat who likes to put holes on the wall. So imagine they leave the house. I think there were like almost 100 holes inside the house. So we asked them to patch everything, because not included already. That's not included already with the package, with their departure services package. So we asked them, you need to patch that. So normally during move-in, we already explained to them that this is what you should do upon your departure. So if the owner allows you to put a hold, but you have to patch everything, and it must be good as new when you arrive in the house. So we always explain to them and make them understand, so that during the departure it would not be hard for them to pay the the cost of the repairs of the house, because the landlord would always, well, actually, most of the landlords would not want to refund the security deposit.
That's
80% of the landlord would not want to refund the security deposit. So, as much as if they would see any cost that they can deduct from the security deposit, they will always put it there. So, on our part, what we do is we always bargain with the landlord. So of course we have to save the money of the company. We need to return it back to the company. So it should be, all the costs that should be involved should be considerable. So I even have one experience that the landlord, even the rice cooker, she is charging me 500, I think it's like $200, because that rice cooker came from the US, and the tenant was I think they were not able to use it because it had some technical issues. So she's asking me to pay the $200 and deduct it from the security deposit. Imagine that, it's just a rice cooker.
Yeah.
$200. So what I told the landlord, we'll have that fixed. So we did the repairs of the rice cooker. So we save up the 200 US dollars. So as much as the landlord can put all the cost, they deduct all the cost of the security deposit, they will do that actually.
Yeah.
So per experience, we have like 80% of our security deposit were refunded.
That's
Yeah.
So
good.
very rare that we have like it's like 50%, it's only 50% that you're going to refund. So most of the time we were able to fix and arrange with the lessor to refund everything.
And I think that's what's important for us, Jen. Because
Yes.
like for me, I'm a mobility manager based in Singapore, right? I'm not physically there, so I
Yes.
don't really have eyes and ears to look at what the damages are and everything.
Yeah.
So everything, my decision making really hinges on my supplier telling me what's
Yes.
happening there and what's right and what's market norm, what's not market norm, what's
Yes.
repairs, what damage belongs to the employee, what's really you know acceptable for deduction
Yeah.
of the security. So these are kind of the things that where the local expert, your local expertise, really
Yes.
helps us in making these decisions. Because without you guys doing it, then we really have
Yeah.
no basis, right? The most I can
Yeah.
probably do is say, okay, deduct everything.
Okay, deduct everything. Imagine if you'll have like 600,000 and you'll just get like 300,000. That's a lot.
And mostly, most
Oh,
corporations too, generally, like our accounting team is very adamant na kailangan full 100% security
yeah, it
deposit
should be
because
actually that's
the
the standard really.
reconciliation is so terrible pag hindi siya
Yeah.
100%. So as much as
Yes.
Actually, I
possible.
can relate to that because my the accounting department was the bane of my existence, especially of moving of
Sorry, accounting, but we love you.
yes, yeah, we love you, but we actually you have tortured us. Okay, on this part. Okay, but it's actually professional naman, but we do understand where you're coming from. So anyway, so ito kulang. This is the zany world of global mobility. Okay, so a lot of people, kasi they just think that it's just like people coming in and then it's just managing the visa and then so just to remind people, okay, so once you get the 9G visa, there is the annual reporting. Okay, so the expats of in the Philippines, they need to go there. I think by March. Okay, the deadline is always in March of the
Of the
year,
year.
and they need to actually just go to immigration, our immigration, and then present their IDs. Okay, so there yung kasi sa China lang ako familiar yung iCard. Okay, they need to have that para sa record system has to be marked that they presented it for annual reporting. So how about other well, this one we will actually kulang ang isang araw to discuss global mobility. So
Yes.
anyhow, okay, so we'll just summarize now for the benefit of our viewers. So there's in global mobility, there are two ways, okay, of looking at it. One sa side ng expatriate, okay, as an employee, and then cost-wise naman sa organization. So the
Yes.
HR manager, the HR head, and her team, his or her team, they have to look into certain issues like is it viable business wise kung if you're going to pay for it, or else okay you would have to yun nga yung sinasabi ni Sheila na yung core flex approach. Okay, so you have to take it out in some item kung ano man itong benefit na to or allowance na to. So that's two way. Okay, kaya zany siya kasi you're managing this side and then you're managing the organization side. So ladies, okay, so I'm sure that you're going to be managing your personal lives after this. So can you give us, okay, a final word about the services that you offer? So we'll start with Sheila.
All right. Well, final words. If you're thinking about going into global mobility and sustain life in global mobility,
Tumatawa sila.
I think what's really important is to have that humor and that patience. I think that
Yes.
that is what sustains me the most in the most difficult times of global mobility. But it's very fulfilling. Like I would say that I wouldn't have stayed in this industry for this long if I did get a sense of job fulfillment from it, because there's something else that you parang it kind of gives you a feeling, a good feeling then when you find like an expat and they're very well settled in the location. You know, they're being enriched by the experience. Their families are are happily settled in that country. Of course not 100%, but still the when majority of your expats are in this happy place in their assignments, then I get a sense of fulfillment from that too. So each of us as mobility managers, we should try to find what kind of drives us into this
Yes.
kind of industry and sustain ourselves from whatever, right? So in my case, that was my inspiration. I kind of get a good full sense of fulfillment when I see a happily settled expatriate from the assignment. So yeah, so I think
Yes.
it's very
Yes.
and never a boring day. Remember that.
Yes.
Never a boring day.
So aside from being patient, you must have a really dedicated and sincerity. So just like me, pag expat talaga, I mas okay sa akin na I talk with the expats compared with the Filipinos. Dealing with expats is more easy because they'll tell you upfront what do they want, and it's easy. What do you call this? It's easy for you. Just have to manage their expectations. So on a global mobility, you should always manage their expectations. Hindi pwede na like, let's say for example, traffic sa Philippines, sabihin mo hindi traffic. So it's really, it would be a big issue to them. So like you should always be transparent, and you should always be helpful or accommodating with them na um ang relocation kasi it's a personalized service talaga. It's really a personalized service. We even have like parang meron kaming joke nung buddy ko na we're like a personal yaya. Everything from end to end will guide them, will assist them hanggang dumating sila, hanggang umalis sila ng country. You have to be with them. You have to ensure na everything has been completed, and they have uh, what do you call this? They have been happy with our service, and they have enjoyed the country now while they are here in the Philippines. So ang reminder lang for all the HRs, especially those with expats, always ensure na your expats are legal to work and stay in the Philippines. So to avoid headaches with immigration. So
To
yun yung
avoid.
palagi. Headaches with immigration, ma'am. So because there are companies that they don't monitor the
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 papers.
expiration of the visas.
So
So you might end up blacklisted na si employee. So pang ano na siya, papaalisin na lang siya bigla sa Pilipinas. So it's better to ensure that your expat is always legal to work and stay in the Philippines.
We talk about workarounds, but yung workarounds na to, these are like just simple ways na maging efficient. Okay, we're not espousing na we should not comply with the ruling or a circular, etc. When we talk about workarounds, so actually, it's very important to take note of the expiration dates on the papers, visas, 9G, and also the passport of yung passport
Yes,
ng.
expiring passports.
Oo, may kopya kayo nun kasi baka yung expat nyo hindi rin alam na nag-expire yung passport niya. Mas problema yon. Okay, so
Hindi kasi nila tinitignan din.
yeah.
nalagay
Yeah.
na lang nila sa aparador yon. Diba? Yun. So, yun lang yung sinasabi ni Jen, okay? How about George? Okay, ikaw George, what did you learn from this talk?
Alam mo, so much, no? In fact, looking at it, if we're looking at global mobility as an object, we'll probably look at it as one big piece of luggage, di ba? Pero yung discussion tonight, parang gakuko pa lang yata yung napag-usapan natin. It's just so little, no? And it's a really big world, no? So ako, I learned more than anything aside from the patience and being able to go the extra mile. I think it's really being able to manage and coordinate well. Having to learn all these laws, all these quirks, all these smaller details in order for you to deliver a seamless experience for just one expat. And if what you're talking to is like numerous expats, then good luck, di ba? Kaya ako sobrang hats off ako sa mga global mobility experts, and we're so glad that you guys came into the show. Nag-usap tayo dito para tayo kwentuhan lang, pero hindi natin namalayan, wait, 10, 30, 20, 10, 10,
Oo nga.
10-20.
into 2 hours na, di ba? So, and sabi ko nga, because we're just talking about this small, siguro, I think for the benefit naman of the HR folks who are watching, siguro, if you have questions for in terms of talent, the skill sets, or for that matter, trying to look at the option of outsourcing it, making it more optimal for you as an organization. Ask our guests. No, you can ask them directly, or you can send myself and Cristina a message, a DM, and we will forward it to them.
Yes.
Hopefully, this is not the last time that we have you as guests, and hopefully, in the future, you can still come here for other discussion, because I know this is a very big universe. And thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Oh, thank
And
you
thank
for
you,
having
Thank
us.
Cristina.
you.
Nagulat din ako, ang dami rin na share kasi parang sa dami rin na experience niya, no? Handling BPOs, handling her own company. So, and so good ang discussion. We really had so much fun tonight. We learned so much.
Well, actually ako I was able to relive the funny moments, okay? So parang nag-flashback lahat sa akin yun, okay?
It's
But
Celine Dion. It's all coming back.
yeah, so yes. Oo. Kasi but one thing is for sure, okay? So when you're in HR, you will be exposed to a lot of environments, and you would actually need a lot of skills. And ngayon that the market is becoming more global, so ito na to, pumapasok na dito yung being exposed to different people of different cultures, okay? So ito na ngayon, this is the time to actually revisit. Kasi for me, what I learned from this experience in my career is being the value of being straightforward. Okay, so yun nga, pag sinabing ma-traffic, okay? Huwag mo sabihin na konti lang yung traffic. Kasi pagka sumabak siya sa traffic, na-shock siya, that's going to be a complaint, okay? When you, see him in the office. So that's the only takeaway that I got from itong stint na to. And then also, the value of being straightforward with the compensation package. So you have, before he takes off from the country of origin, dapat clear yan. Kasi pagdating dito, ang mangyayari is, pag hindi yan naging satisfied, hindi yan happy, bigla yan magre-resign. So sayang lang yung effort ninyo relocating him. So actually, yeah, for CMB practitioners, CMB practitioners, that's a valuable lesson to get from this discussion with our experts. So anyway, so
CNB pala, sorry. Tama ka, Chris. Yung mga CNB na who would want to really take a look at the packages and understand in terms of a cost benefit standpoint. Every time there is an expat, mag-coordinate ka na kagad sa eksperto para the costs, no, from a CNB standpoint. So yeah.
of course, kasi that's really, that's ang tawag na namin dyan is it's really going to bite you 2 years. Kasi investment yan. And then even when you look at the financial statements and then ROI, makikita mo yung bleeding mo because of your decision to get expats. That's why, in a way, getting this DOLE movement, trying to limit the offerings to the local talent, good din yon for businesses. But actually, that's a challenge now for Filipinos to actually upskill and be more global in their skills. Yung level ng kanilang skills, has to be that, the standard has to be high. So anyway, I'll not, it's going to be a busy day again tomorrow for you guys. So this is a temporary goodbye, and hopefully, okay, there are some questions, and then we get to talk to you again. So a temporary goodbye. Good evening, guys,
Right.
Good
and
evening.
and thank you, guests.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Jen, thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. And have a good
We're
evening to
happy
everyone.
to be
Good
here. Thank you.
evening. Thank
Bye.
you.
For your discussion.
Okay, bye bye.